of our biggest problem here, guys, is that you've got the pitchers here will dig out this hole, giant hole here. Leaving it here, we've had some rain overnight, which was helpful. Leaving it here creates a big concrete area where there's a giant hole in our mound. As you can see in the circle here, the dirt has piled up here and over on this side where it's been dug out from the pitchers. What we need to do is actually get this hole here, this big mound, back into this hole and tamp it down in. Go ahead, Brian. One of the things that's important is we're always going uphill. We don't ever want to pull dirt off of the mound. We always want dirt staying up on the mound. The back of the rake has a flat edge. That's great for pushing dirt around. The other part's great for kind of breaking the dirt up. So pulling some dirt up in here, getting it into that hole. All right. I always like to start with my foot, right? So I can level it out a little bit and create a nice flat area, right? Once you have that, you can start tamping it down. And hit that with the rake again. So now, as you can see, with just a minimal effort, not too long, we, instead of having a giant pile here and a hole over here, we've started creating a more even surface. Being mindful though, guys, also while you're doing that, what you want to be careful to not create, so we're pulling some of the dirt here because we did have a little bit of a hump here. You want to also be mindful of the fact that you're not creating a hole in front of the mound either. So always the objective is to have a nice teardrop mound, but also still have a nice flat surface all the way around. So now what we've done is we've created a perfect mound. This mound needs a little bit of work. With that being said, a perfect mound has a nice teardrop shape. What we've created is a good soft spot here, or a good flat spot here, and we filled in that landing spot. As kids are, their pitch comes here, they dig their heels in, and that's what creates that big hole. Making sure that we're refilling that will allow the mound to last a lot longer for seasons to come.
And not just refilling it, but tamping it down and possibly even using some water. Right. Because if we just fill it with dirt, it has a tendency, an overnight windstorm comes through, it's going to blow all that out.
It's a great note, and especially if you have access to water, watering can, your kids water from after the game. We have hoses at some of the fields. If you have a really dry day, you know, this is great for today, but a really dry day, once you fill these holes back in, putting some water on it will allow that dirt to stay and settle versus just blowing away overnight.
Brendan, who can help with this?
So, important to note for managers, this is something, especially in the majors, getting the kids involved, letting the kids help you rake. Other dads and moms who are in the stands, your assistant coaches, the objective is not to have every manager be responsible for everything, right? You're responsible for making sure that these things get done. It's not, the objective is not for the manager to have to do all of it themselves, him or herself, right? So just make sure that it's done. And the point is, this should have never been like this at this point in the season. The reason I say that is that means that the last game has been played and these holes were left. What we would find is when we came back in March to start our next season, those holes would still be there and they'd be worse, right? So it's important to kind of preserve the field throughout the season and for seasons to come.
So coaches, managers are doing this after games, after practices?
After games, after practices, absolutely. Anytime you start seeing wear and tear on the field, you've got to maintain it. Brings us to the batter's box is another part that we end up with a lot of trouble too. So the goal here, as we're here now at the plate again, using the same tools as you would use for the mound. You've got both the tamper and the rake. The objective is really for here at the mound and anywhere on the field is to create a flat surface. The more puddles you have, or the more low spots you have, the more puddles you'll end up with. And so we want to make sure that we're avoiding low spots in the area, and two areas that we really end up with, again, as we said, on the mound and in the batter's box. So what we're going to try to do is pull dirt from as many places around the backstop as we can to create a nice flat surface in the batter's box and not have a low spot. The right-handed batter's box typically ends up being one of the worst spots.
And you can see,
yep.
You can see right here how this is much higher than it is down here where the kids are digging their feet in.
Yep. Kids dig their feet in, they'll kick dirt back this way, right? All fine, all good. We need to move it back in. So go ahead, Brian. So again, we're using kind of the tooth part, the part with the teeth on the rake to try to break up some of that dirt and get it to where we can actually start moving some dirt into that low spot. And then once he's moved up and got some of the dirt broken up, we'll start tamping it down. Backside again can be used kind of like to pull or push dirt around in larger quantities of dirt. Good, yep. Level it out. Pull that some back there. And then you can begin, again, just like with the mound, tamping it in and trying to make it a flatter surface. One more. Don't be afraid to grab dirt from the outside. You don't want to create another hole by fixing a hole. So getting dirt from as many places as you can to try to really level out the ground back here. Being also mindful that behind the batter's box, you've got a catcher and an umpire, both of which will also be setting their feet, moving their feet, and could create more holes. So again, the objective is to try to really flatten this area out. Something that's really important in this area is the rake. You really want to rake back here versus using the drag. You don't really want to drag around back here too much, and especially near the plate. Tape it down again. So already we can see from where there was a high spot here and a low spot here, this is starting to really level out. And that's what you want. That'll help with, again, same as the mound, that'll help with the longevity of the field. And when we do get rain, which we will, you won't have as many low spots that will create puddles. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to put the batter's boxes down and the lines for the fair foul lines. The first part of what you need to do is at every field there will be a template, a batter's box template, and that will allow you to actually get the proper distance. Not all boxes, the boxes are, you know, a certain distance from the mound, certain distance from the plate, and so using a template is important. What we're going to do here once we have the plate, the template in place, is you're going to draw a line on the outside of the batter's box to make sure that you get the exact proper distance. What you're going to see once he's done this box is this actually flips over and you can do both boxes the same way. So Jim, if you want to come in and draw your lines for
Hask
the template
Field.
at Hask Field here. So one thing to note again, this is solely just going to become your template. You're going to end up putting chalk over top of this template or over top of these lines. So this is just a guideline so that you can get nice straight lines and the box is a proper regulation size. Now one thing to note, some of the templates are made out of wood, some of the templates are made out of wrought iron. This is one of our nicer templates, right? So you definitely want to draw. If you've got one that's made out of wood or wrought iron or what have you, and you don't have a tool to kind of trace, it is okay to kind of step on it, and that will kind of create a line all the way around into the dirt, and it will allow you to still have a nice straight line. It is important when you're creating these lines. We're going to take out the line striper over here. Some of our line stripers, most of them actually will make two different size lines, a 2-inch line and a 4-inch line. You want to always use the smaller 2-inch line in the infield. The 4-inch line should not be used for anything you're doing on this field. That's for outfield lines, and so for batters boxes and the lines that go through the base, you want to use the 2-inch lines. So one thing I want to note that just came to mind as we're doing these things, you can see the effort that goes into putting in these lines. So coaches, managers, players, anybody who's on the field, it's really important that before the game starts, that we stay off the lines, right? It's kind of an unwritten baseball rule, if you will. But the point is, especially for important games, championship games, what have you, somebody will have done all this work. And we want to make sure that the lines stay nice and that the field looks good to start the game. So really important. It's a kind of a coaching tool, if you will. Just tell your parents, players, coaches, anybody that's out on the field. Trust me, your umpires will already know this. So stay off of the lines until the game gets started.
So this is a pretty important part of getting the field ready before a baseball game. We use base plugs. Every single base is concreted in, and this base plug protects the hole that this goes in. It has a receiver that this will go inside of. We protect those holes the best we can with the plugs, but every time you pull these out, there may be a situation where the inside of that receiver is full of dirt. And which means that this will not set down on there enough and your base will stick up off the ground. So in the shed, every shed, there is a receiver cleaning tool. We use it, we just pull the dirt away from the top of the plate so it can't fall in there. This goes in and we're pulling out any loose dirt that's down inside and setting it off to the side. And we want to make sure that we get enough of that dirt out that this will go down inside.
So very important, as he's talking about base plugs, it's very important. There is a base plug. There will be a base plug. There should be at least 3 of them at every single field. It is critical that after the game, if the bases are not in the ground, a base plug needs to be in it. If you drag the field without a base plug in it, we will never find that hole again without a metal detector. It's a real pain. So make sure there's always a base plug in the base, when in the hole when the base is not in, the bottom of the base plate.
And for the next step of field prep, having this here is important for when we put the lines down for the field. The lines are fair territory, just like the base is. So our line is going to come straight across here. So keeping this here gives you another guide midline in order to operate the chalk box.